YouTube, welcome back to the channel. This is Ace from Fit to Play Games. In last video, I talked to you guys about me being sick for the past a week and a half and unable to make any videos for you. But more importantly, I come back with a video of my RPG recommendations that you should play when you're new to collecting PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games. So go ahead and grab that coffee, have a seat, and relax. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to talk about games that I recommend that you follow if you're new to collecting PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games. And these are role-playing games that I highly recommend, aside from the well-known RPGs that is already out on the market. Now, we all know that the Final Fantasy games franchise started way before any other role-playing games out there and was on the verge of closing up shop, and the whole story made me fall in love with the franchise wholeheartedly. How it was the last game that Square was going to release before it closes up shop. Now, if you're a diehard Final Fantasy fan like myself, this video is not about Final Fantasy, but rather about the game called Suikoden, created by Konami. Suikoden was based off of a classic Chinese novel, and what gets me into the story the most is its theme, which includes a little bit of politics, corruption of an empire, and retaliation of revolution from key pointed characters in the game. And most importantly, the use of crystals, basically known as true runes, to boost the campaign and your character development in the game. Alright, so first up we have Suikoden, which was released in December of 1996 for the PlayStation system by Konami. This game was a totally different RPG for me at that time because the story is different and did not have your typical destruction of the world type of story that most role-playing games have. And definitely the side quest of the game was very enjoyable. The collection of all 108 Stars of Destiny was super fun for me to do. It made the player want to collect all 108 of them just to see what kind of combos you can come up with each character combination. Also, I definitely enjoyed the war game aspect of this game, where it's basically rock, paper, scissors, unless you have collected advisors, which are characters that you can get in the game to join your cause. So these intels, they can actually check if your opponent is going to do a certain move, so then you can counter that with a different move, which would be more devastating against your opponent. Also, the one-on-one battles was another wonderful addition into the Suikoden game. That was definitely something new for me because I feel like that brings a lot of background to the story. I remember Tyr McDowell had to go up against his father to in order to gain the upper hand in the revolution. Now, mind you, your father is actually the general of the Scarlet Moon Empire, and he's the best of the best. And that really brought tears to my eyes because as the player, you realize that there's no way to get out and save your loved ones from that situation. Up next is Suikoden 2, which was released in August of 1999. This game for me was groundbreaking, especially because it featured the option for me to upload my previous saved game from the original Suikoden game and be able to use Tyr in Suikoden 2. Now, that was something really new to me. Literally, I was not expecting that at that time, that the purpose of uploading Suikoden in Suikoden 2 would allow me to use Tyr, the wielder of the Soul Eater rune, handed down to him by his childhood friend Ted, would be usable in Suikoden 2. By doing this, however, it allowed you to replace two characters from Suikoden 2 as being replaced by Tyr and also Gremio. Other than that option, Konami really created a solid foundation for gamers to explore the Suikoden series through the usage of game saves. Now, I have to be honest, the first run that I've had with the original Suikoden game was not perfect. I tell you this because I was one of those players who did not get all 108 characters and was not able to get a full completion or 100% completion from the first game. So when I found out that I had to collect all 108 of them, I had to replay the game all over again to collect all 108. So I'm able to transfer that save to Suikoden 2, which allowed me to play tier. My second gameplay, I definitely perfected Suikoden, which the grind was good because it felt like I was going back in time trying to understand the whole game again. But other than that, that was the whole purpose of my second gameplay, even though I already understood what the game was, what my purpose is for defeating the game once more. Again, nonetheless, the story of Suikoden 2 solidified the franchise even more. The game mechanics was still turn-based, but made it even better through the smooth commands it featured. I love how the story was split between two characters, and I really don't want to compare that to any other RPGs, because for this series alone, that was something new, which opened up a new background and new background for the heroes of the story. Again, I don't want to sound redundant, but all Suikoden 2 series, or the Suikoden series, was an even better Suikoden than the first, and would highly recommend it to any gamers that is collecting for the system. Alright, up next, what I have for you guys is Suikoden 3. Now, this is where it gets more interesting because Suikoden 3 was built on the next generation system, the PlayStation 2. What's amazing is that you are still able to upload the Suikoden 2 game save you have from your previous gameplay had you finished and completed Suikoden 2. Now, I'm not the type of gamer who compares games by which Suikoden is the best, this and that, but I look at the improvements and the new and special features the game offers to me, which would make me engaged and enjoy the game. To me, Suikoden 3 was so good, but I would just want to point this out because Konami references a lot of its characters to events and people that actually existed, and that the characters were either based or named close to the historical figure. Konami was really good at that kind of thing that makes us players sucked in and get into the story. What makes Suikoden 3 unique from the first two was that there was now 3 characters that are main characters. In each chapters, you are able to complete for each character story that you finish, you're able to choose which character story you would like to play next. It was very amazing to see that Konami featured 3 characters compared to Suikoden 2 that only had 2 characters. Now back into the battle systems, Konami simplified it even more by being able to control 2 characters at once and being able to input the commands you want them to do while performing it separately when commenced, which made a whole lot of sense. That saved us players of having to click individually for each character's command. The war aspect of the game was also even more simplified because Konami decided to split it into units that basically engages other units if you choose them to engage it. And eventually, as the winner, you use all the units to engage and defeat the remaining units your enemies still controls. Of course, as the main part of the story, which really got me sucked in, is choosing between the 3 characters you play and who becomes the flame champion. And I leave that to you guys to decide. I have run through 3 different gameplays and have chosen each one of them as the flame champion but I would let you guys choose which flame champions you guys want to become. Next, we're going to jump over to Suikoden 4, which came out on January of 2005. Now, this is where the series takes a new direction. I mean, literally, takes the direction of naval combat. In my opinion, it was a new take on the traditional Suikoden RPG that I have gotten used to by that time. I say this with all confidence that Konami definitely took the right turn in creating the fourth Suikoden. Mind you, this Suikoden has no relation to the other Suikoden. I shouldn't say that, but it has no relation because to any of the Suikoden we have covered so far, because the happenings in Suikoden 4 happened before all of the events in Suikoden 1, 2, and 3. Nonetheless, I was still very impressed because honestly speaking, back in the day, I wasn't really a big fan of battleship style games, and I thought to myself that I'd give Suikoden 4 a try before I judge it, and I was glad that I really did. I enjoyed it, the game still carried on with the traditional turn-based battle commands, and it was just a little bit more crisper and more defined than the previous Suikodens. But believe me, because I think that Konami really tapped on the potential capability of the PlayStation 2, and as the result, Suikoden 4 Naval Combat was born. Anyway, the naval combat works easily. You just have to think ahead of the AI opponents and make sure you allow them to make the mistakes so you can take them down easily. Cannons were used in the naval combat, and since this being Suikoden, cannons are fired using runes, which gave birth to the rune cannons. The naval war is definitely fun because Konami still used the same unit style warfare characters that the players choose to go into the unit as leader controls the unit. In short, the stronger the character you use, the better the unit performs in battle. Usually after the naval combat, the story progresses on foot, where the main character Laszlo is then going into battle with traditional old school Suikoden turn-based combat, which brings us closer to home in terms of strategy. All in all, this is a wonderful game to play, and I highly recommend this for the guys who are new to collecting PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games. And lastly, in addition, Konami certainly kept the one-on-one battle within the game, and it allows you to, as a main player, to test your ability to go up against a character using the rock, paper, scissors style combat in one-on-one combat. That being said, I believe that this type of style of gameplay from the very first Suikoden and being carried to Suikoden 4 allowed us as a player to be a little bit more engaged within the game. And thus, whenever you guys come across this game, I surely recommend you guys pick this up. So now we come across Suikoden 5, which was released on March 2006. Time sure does fly when you're having fun, and games are even funner. What can I say? I believe that Konami sure stepped up and created an even more unique Suikoden for us to enjoy. In being a gamer, especially my love for good role-playing games with amazing storylines, I wasn't surprised that I love Suikoden 5 in its setting. I sure am glad that Konami was able to find the time to create a fifth installment to the already amazing series. Before I thoroughly begin the breakdown of Suikoden 5, I just want to remind you that Suikoden might be a little bit hard to follow if you're not keeping up with the story. That's just my personal opinion because I'm the type of player that totally pays attention to the game storyline because it interests me like it would interest me a good book. So with that being said, there are going to be some characters in Suikoden 5 that you might have already come across to or already have joined your cause from a previous Suikoden game. Because just like Suikoden 4, Suikoden 5's story also began before the events of the other Suikodens. Anyway, enough chatter, back to the story of Suikoden 5. It takes place in the Queendom of Valena. And yes, you've heard me right, it's not a kingdom, but a queendom. You take control of Prince Freydor, which basically means nothing in this country except a title and that you belong to a royal family. Basically, in a kingdom, the king can marry off the princess to whomever in the kingdom. In the queendom, the queen can marry off the prince to whomever as well. Anyway, the Queen of Helena makes the ultimate sacrifice by bearing the Sun Rune. She is your mother. The Sun Rune is the national treasure, one of the national treasures of Helena. But I'm not going into too much details because I will let you guys discover that on your own. Let me just say though that Helena has 3 different national treasures that are runes, but the Sun Rune is the most powerful one of all 3, which the queen undertakes in order to rule. In the story, events transpire, someone breaks into the vault and steals one of the national treasure, which causes the queendom on high alert. And to keep the story from unfolding, corrupt nobles and assassinations and usurping the queen in order to rule happens, and Freydor and his beloved sister Lemslia, including their aunt Scylla, is smack dab in the middle of it. This is where the traditional storytelling of Suikoden begins. The battle mechanics are more easier, of course. There are even more combo combinations with different characters, which makes it even more engaging. The war command system is now even better, with a mixture of land and naval combat, with the added feature as well to allow the player to zoom in and out, because sometimes I've come across this, the gameplay tends to be small, like the characters are so small. Now you're able to zoom in and out to see more of the surroundings. All in all, Konami definitely compiled Suikoden 5 efficiently while taking different mechanics from the other Suikoden, which makes this an excellent game to add to your collection of RPG repertoire. So last but not the least, we have Suikoden Tactics. Suikoden Tactics is a game that is more connected to Suikoden 4 than any other Suikodens, because this story takes place during the younger years of Laszlo and Snow from Suikoden 4. Basically, you take control of a character named Kirill, and you travel along with your father, who is accompanied by other people seeking justice against people that uses rune cannons. In this story, rune cannons apparently has a negative effect on a human being that comes in contact with it, creating some type of mutation to the human being, and the human body is altered. Basically, you are trying to figure out who creates the rune cannons, and your father, including yourself, is basically in it to stop it and put these people into justice. And as you guys can see, I can't tell too much more information regarding this game, because what you guys are seeing right now in this screen are my more recent gameplay. I just recently started to play this game, so I can't really tell you guys more information about it, except the fact that I recently learned how to do a co-op, which basically happens when you talk to a certain character you are right next to, and then you basically create a connection with that character, and then you can do co-op attacks. So that wraps up my video about the role-playing game series that you should definitely collect if you're new to collecting PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of videos to show you about Suikoden Tactics, because that's still a game that I'm currently playing. But as soon as I do, I will make another video later on to show you guys gameplay and the features that they have for that game. Also, I wanted to mention that Suikoden Tactics for 3DS is also another game that you should definitely get, and a game that I'm currently working on getting as well, so I can show you guys the gameplay and newer features and commands that they might have added in the Suikoden world. If you have any other questions or any comments about maybe a role-playing game that you want me to cover or review, go ahead and drop that comments below. And also, if you have not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to my channel so I can make more videos for you guys in the future. As always, thank you so much for watching my videos, and I will see you guys in the next.